Good evening. If you see a need, fill it. It's not only some really, turn that down, I hear more, not only some really good advice, but it's also a good mindset to have. Let me just give you a real generic example. You're walking down the street, you're taking a walk, and you see a piece of trash laying there. Right thing to do is pick it up and discard it when you get somewhere that you can. You saw a need, and you filled it. And this can follow through so many aspects of your life, not only in a community sense, but also even in a business sense. If you can find a place where you can fill a need in business, you're probably gonna advance because people are gonna use that. That's one of the things that I try to put in with marketing when I help folks with marketing, because I do that. So what am I talking about when it comes to SHTF and filling that need and being able to do something now in the short term and have a maximum effect? And it's interesting that this is coming up because I actually dealt with that issue just recently here in our local community. So again, the stuff that I try to talk to you about, I try to lead by example with it. And I found a need that needed filled and did so. Real quick, no real updates to give you. I got a couple of matters to discuss before we really jump deep into this. Number one, no real updates as far as we're concerned. We're still growing lettuce. I did plant more lettuce today, and no, I didn't make a video yet. My apologies. Tomorrow, I know, I've been saying that, but tomorrow I'll do my best to get a grow tent video out for you so you can see the progress. So all of the, I will say all of the pods or containers are planted now. So I'll do my best to get a video for you tomorrow. I got to do some website work for a client tomorrow as well in the morning. So maybe as soon as I get that done, I can get that video shot. I got one other bit of business that I think is extremely important to discuss before we jump deep into this. There was a prayer sent to a prayer group that I am a member of, and I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind, if you're so inclined, to say a prayer for a father, his daughter, and grandson. I'm not going to get super detailed in it, but I don't believe in really unspoken prayer. I don't know how effective that is. Something doesn't sit well with me about that. So I'm going to give you the gist of it so you know what you're praying about. So what had happened was, and I'm going to say a young lady, I don't know her age. A young lady was quarantined, and because of the COVID situation, she was out, I believe, worked 2 weeks. 1 second, let me open the email up. I made sure to save it, and the reason why is because with all the data I take in, I can mess stuff like this up. So 2 weeks she was quarantined, with COVID, that is. And she had tested negative and was supposed to go back to work, okay? Well, anyway, she was met in the parking lot at her place of, former employment with boxes of her stuff. And I will read the quote to you. She was told that she made a poor decision in associating with non-vaxxers when she couldn't be vaccinated. And then she was fired on the spot. So this young lady is dealing with quite a bit right now. She's going through a divorce. This was her only source of income. and the lawyer that they had kind of ran out on them. I can't say I personally have that experience, but I was helping somebody deal with a mortgage issue back, around after the 2008 debacle. I was assisting them with with advice to attorneys. And anyway, she had it happen to her a couple of times. The attorneys just ran out, and after the money was put down and everything else, it happens. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I mean, it just doesn't seem like it ends for this family at this particular time. So if you would be so inclined, please say a few words to the father. And I would appreciate it. I'm sure they would appreciate it. And yeah, I'm sure the father would like to hear from you. So anyway, so let's talk about what's going on here. What had happened here locally, and I'm going to use it as an example, and then I'm going to explain how you could best apply it, or how I feel you could best apply it in your own community. So what had happened here is we had a community Facebook group for our town, and it's pretty heavily censored, and I get it to some aspects, but this was a bit heavy-handed. And it reached the point to where the community could not discuss serious matters for whatever reason. I don't really understand. There's been, I believe, an uptick in things like vandalism and stuff like that going on. And so people would say, hey, had a hit and run, blah, blah, blah. But it wouldn't be, they wouldn't be calling people out or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was just letting the community know about these things going on. And many of these posts were getting deleted. Comments were always getting turned off for them, so people couldn't have conversations. And this is the most ridiculous thing that you could imagine. This is literally handicapping your community from being able to get together and do something about it. And what do I mean by do something? Maybe just keep a little bit more of an eye out. I mean, I'm not talking vigilantism or anything like that, but awareness is the biggest key, is that simple awareness. Well, how can people know to be aware if they're not allowed to discuss what's going on? So I saw a need, and I filled it. I just simply created a Facebook group. And it's kind of humorous because for no reason at all, now I'm blocked out of the other group. I guess because it's some pissing contest. I don't know. It's only one-sided because I could give a damn less. But anyway, I'm not saying necessarily, and I want to make this clear, I'm not saying necessarily that the best thing that you can do for your local community, by the way, which is, and I just really jumped over the starting line tonight, and I apologize. When I say what you can do now to help the most important people, the people that I am referring to, and I'm sorry, I should have clarified this at the very beginning, is the people in your community. I've been talking about that quite a bit here lately. The most important people to you in a major situation are the people that are within walking distance. Okay, and I'm telling you, you can look it up. This is definitely researchable information. The people that are most important to you are those that are in walking distance. And so it's important that you do best to have that community. And I don't, like I say, think that it's necessarily the best idea to start a Facebook group. And the reason why I say that is because you may not get a lot of attention to it. You may, if you're somebody that's well known, popular with the town, or whatever, or you've got some way to get that group to grow quickly, then by all means do it. I don't. So, but we're growing. We're over 50 members. A lot of that is today. The large majority of that just happened today. So that is an awesome thing. But you may not do that. And I'm shocked that we got as big as we are. And I don't know if we'll get a lot bigger. It doesn't matter. Numbers don't matter to me. Why? Because the Father told us not to worry about the numbers. Anyway, so you can always go into your existing groups for your local community. Now, this next thing is extremely important. Extremely important. If you want to help people put a little seed in their head about preparedness, don't go in there wearing a tinfoil hat, because you'll real quick push a lot of people away. Just use what has already happened. I mean, we've got plenty of very recent experience to be able to talk about, and people be able to relate to issues that they saw happen. And that's the most important thing, that you can pick recent events that people can remember. I mean, I know that it's kind of humorous to most anyway about the great toilet paper shortage of 2020, but you know, that was a real thing. It was a real thing. I'm sure many folks that were using their socks would agree. I had to throw the joke in there. So, you know, that in itself is a good example of preparedness. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody should go out and hoard things. That's not, and you know, if you have this discussion, you need to make that clear too. That's what prepping's all about. It's about not hoarding. Okay, prepping is about incrementally getting things and adding to your stock. That's not hoarding. Hoarding would be going in there and filling your carts up with with items, and just buying as absolutely much as you can at one time, you know, and kind of impeding others from being able to get any. That would be hoarding. So, just encouragement about preparedness and using real-world recent events as examples is huge, you know. There's nothing wrong with people putting back some extra food, some extra supplies of all kinds, whether they be any type of sanitary products or, you know, obviously the food, and just anything you may need. Medications that you may need, very important, you know. It's important to store some water. You know, if you can store some bottled water and keep it, you know, cycled, buy new and drink the old. I'm drawing blanks for the proper word. I don't know why. Rotated. Sheesh. Anyway, yeah. All these things are things that will help, and you can encourage folks to do. And I think it's highly important because we are looking at a lot of different stuff going on. I believe that we can certainly expect lockdowns in the very, very short term. What's that going to do? Well, what did the last one do? What did it do to the supply chains? The other issues are looming as well. Now, there was a 60-day moratorium added to the eviction moratorium. So I don't know how all that's going to play out. You know, there's so much craziness with all of that. And if you are somebody that is, you know, relying on that moratorium, I would advise you not to be real reliant on it. And the reason why I say that is because, from the way I understand it, Biden essentially is trying to override the Supreme Court. Now, I don't know, that might be a norm, but I think it's pretty provocative, just personally. So I don't know. I don't know where that's going to lead. And I was one that was always raised not to count your chickens before they hatch. So I'm just kind of giving you that tidbit. If you're reliant on that moratorium, make sure you got plans. Either way, because it's only 60 days, even if it does stay in effect. I mean, I've got all kinds of thoughts on all of that, and there are some people that are in bad positions, and there are some people that won't try. And, there are indeed some people that would look at that as an opportunity to just not pay rent and blow the money on other stuff. And I am sure that there are plenty of individuals that fall under that category. They did that to themselves. I don't know what to say. Our rent remained paid the entire time. We didn't try to get out of it because there was a moratorium, because that's just it. It's a moratorium. It was going to end, and you would owe. That didn't go away. It wasn't you get out of rent free. It was a delay. So, yeah, probably not a good thing to get in that debt. Anywho, a bit far away from the subject. Just do what you can to engage in communication with those in your community, and do so, like I say, in a calm way. Don't be an alarmist. Don't be a doomist. Don't, But if anybody asks questions as to why should we do that, well, then most certainly explain the different things that are going on. I don't watch TV, okay, like broadcast television, cable television. We don't have either. So I have no idea what's being put on there. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of important stuff that's not being put on there, because the last times I've seen it, it's pretty disgusting. Let me tell you something, and this might date it. The last time I really watched any amount of TV, the news disgusted me because they would spend 15 minutes talking about J-Lo and 5 seconds talking about something important. And so that was, to me, disgusting. And it might not have been J-Lo. It was, what was the big one? It was the Jersey, I think, the Jersey Shore. I don't know, something like that. Kardashians. Yeah, see, you see how much I pay attention to that trash. But anyway, so a lot of people probably are totally unaware of the different things going on, like very high likelihood of conflict in the South China Sea. And then there's a lot of stuff going on right now in, the Gulf of Oman. A lot of stuff. So I know that there was reports today of possibly up to 4 tankers, I believe it's tankers, under siege. So, and I know there's a headline involving it. I don't know a whole lot of details on it because that's not something I looked into today. But that is something that's important. Of course, I believe it was yesterday, there was a drone attack on a ship in which Iran is being blamed for. And as you are probably already aware, already have figured out, Iran is getting blamed for these tankers as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And any one of those two things can result in a conflict pretty quick. Yours is in the Gulf of Oman. Um, yeah, and the thing of it is, you've got like Israel coming out today and making a statement that they can act alone on Iran if they choose, and and I prefer that. I prefer that, and I hope we don't have to foot the bill. I'm good with that. Go for it. I think I don't know. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions about what's going on over there, because I don't honestly trust any of the actors involved. So we got that going on, and like I say, the South China Sea, and that tension's ramping up pretty quick. And then you got obviously the COVID situation, and possible, likely, I should say, lockdowns coming, possible mandates coming, and there is a whole lot of reasons it's a good idea to have a little bit of extra food and supplies put back. The more in your community that you help achieve this goal, even on the micro, okay, the better off everybody is. Man, if you could get 60% of your town, and I know that's a real far-reaching number, I'm gonna be real honest there, but if you could get 60% of your town to put back an extra months of food, do you realize the upper leg that would give your community to respond to a major disaster, a major event of any kind? That would give you a huge advantage over everything, over how many armor-plated vests you have, over how many AR-15s, or over all that. It's going to help you over top of all that, because why? When all it takes is communication, spending your time to possibly prevent a lot of bad things happening. Because if you're prepared and other people realize you're prepared and they're not, where are they going to come looking? Not all about me, especially in an SHTF event. It's not. It's about everybody around you. It's about those that are important to you, which is everybody within walking distance. Not just your family. It goes beyond that. Right? If you've got a family of 5, and that's it, and you're trying to go it alone, and you've got a year's worth of food put back, and the entire rest of your town is hungry, how long do you think you're going to keep on to that food? Not very long. So it's important. It's important. And not only that, but those people that you convince to put back a little bit of extra food and some extra supplies, guess who's going to be looking out for each other? There's strength in community. But it has to be a truly fair community for strength to be able to come from it. Otherwise, in my opinion, evil causes weakness. I equate evil not just with weakness, but weakness is a word that I do equate with evil. Because a lot of times it's some form of evil that caused it. I really think this is important, and I really think that it's super simple to achieve, at least on the micro. If you have means to do more, please do. Hell, if you've got means to speak at any type of a gathering place, arrange a meeting and have the town come talk. These are things that we're all facing together. And I don't know how well that, especially the small businesses, and we talked about this before, are going to fare from this. I don't know how anyone is going to fare from this. Because again, it involves so many different factors. And I'm speaking right now directly to the COVID part of things. You know, a lot of people, mandates for employees come down. There's going to be a lot of unemployed people. A lot of people are going to quit. Not going to help the situation at all. Not on any side. Not on the individual side and not on the business's side. Especially if a business, that particular business is, let's say, healthcare. How's that going to look? That's what concerns me. What happens if you have a mass walkout of healthcare workers at the same time you have a pandemic? You know, I'm not one that's going to sit here and say COVID don't exist. I'm not foolish. Too many people have died from it. I know people that have had it. It's a thing. I think there's, you know, obviously a huge overreaction on the part of the government. However, and I believe it's our own personal responsibility. Each one of our own personal responsibility to protect ourselves from it. Okay? You can't rely on anything else right now. I'm trying to say this so I don't get in trouble with YouTube, but you can't rely on anything else right now preventing others from spreading it. You can't. The best you can do is try to prevent from getting it if you have a concern, and that's true with any aspect of our life, right? You're responsible for your own safety and security above anyone else. And I think there's going to be a mass walkout. And if we do have a mass spike due to more transmissible, and I'm just going by what's being reported, due to a more transmissible, but reports are luckily less deadly from what I understand. From what I understand, the reports at this time, that's what I've heard, that it's more contagious, more transmissible, but less deadly. That's my understanding. However, if the hospital systems get overrun, that puts us in a really bad spot. Now, in Italy, I think it was, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was in Italy when this really first started and it got bad over there. That was the issue, right? People were dying in their homes because, I mean, it was so backed up that, and I don't mean to be graphic, but you need to know, there were people that had to sit in their homes with their deceased loved ones for sometimes up to days before they could get picked up. Now, man, I look into stuff, and I know that was going on. That wasn't made up. My whole point of talking about all of that was to say, what happens if half those healthcare workers walk off and we have a spike and a heavy demand for ICU units or hospitalization in general over it? And what about hospitalization and all of that for everything else that the human body has to worry about? You know, look at what was going on during this last ordeal when we were in the thick of it. Look at the people that couldn't go and get, that needed operations and stuff, and couldn't go get them. You know, the stuff I'm talking about is real. And all these things are examples that you can use when you talk to other people. There's a lot of people that are concerned, to an extent at least, about COVID. Sure, some are overboard. Some probably aren't concerned enough. And others, you know, I would say they're probably pretty close to where they should be. I really don't think we would fare well with overloaded hospitals, and half or so of the staff. And that's just one area. There is many other areas of employment, but that one could cost life, a lot of life. You have the supply chain component that will most definitely cause issues if there's another spike. Even if there's not another spike, we are experiencing really severe supply chain issues right now. Still, some of those supply chain issues aren't quite showing any letting up yet. So, a lot of reasons for concern when it comes to that stuff. I can't sit here and tell you that I know all the reasons why there's so many supply chain issues. I've heard conspiracy theories. I've heard logistic issues. You know, I've heard a gambit of different reasons. And I think it's probably, to be honest, a little bit of most of them. Nonetheless, there's still issues. That's what I'm saying. And if people start doing this now, and if you can encourage people to start now, doing a little bit at a time, not going and buying the store out, then everybody has a chance. Hopefully, there's enough time that everybody has a chance at least to get a little bit under their belt. That's what's important. That's what's important. Like I've said many times, it doesn't matter if all you can do is afford to buy one extra can of food. Stick that chin up. Serious. Stick that chin up. That's one more meal that you wouldn't have had before. How's that a bad thing? Just keep at it. We don't have tons. We don't have room to put tons of food. You know, I just felt more comfortable to have a little bit of a buffer, so that should we need to get past a bump, and there's other things, yes. So I mean, that's not it. That it's not the end. How do I put it? I guess the end of our existence. It's not the end of our existence. Not even really the start. But for here on hand, I just wanted a buffer, and that's essentially if all else fails. I prepare for SHTFs upon SHTFs, okay? And I would advise folks to do the same. It sounds funny, but it's what I do. I don't, this is one of those things, one of those topics to where you have to kind of work at it yourself. If you live in a big city, I don't know what to advise you other than get out. I know that doesn't help, and I get it. But I think there is much more room to work with small communities. And I think that small communities aren't necessarily a lost cause. I think that's probably where this nation will have the greatest strength after a major event. It's going to start with the small communities. It always does. Always from the bottom up. Anything good is built from the bottom up. And that's the only way something is sustainable, is if it's built from the bottom up. If you build things from the top top down, it's going to topple. It's going to get top heavy and topple. It's just a fact. You got to build it from the bottom up. Grassroots. Really, that's about all I know to say on it. I just thought it was an important topic to discuss. And I saw a need here locally for us. I filled that need, and I thought, that's a good thing to talk about. Let me go ahead and get to headlines. We'll make it an easy night, and I'll get out of here. And like I said, I've got website work to do in the morning, so my plan is to have that done as early and quickly as possible and get a grow tent update video out to you guys, and who knows what else. The news has still been pretty fast, pretty hard hitting. Today was a little lighter than the last 2-3 days, so just if anybody's keeping score. Have a sip of tea here and a couple of vapes. Ran out of my pink Starburst juice today that I had made up. So I switched to the banana cream. I can't even remember what's all in it. Strawberry and banana cream, and yeah, there's a bunch of goodness in this. All right. Amazon accused of violating law in Alabama union vote as federal labor official recommends new election. IMF's $650 billion in pandemic relief will mostly go to rich countries. Are you shocked? Affront to basic rights, U.S. officials wade into row surrounding Belarusian Olympic sprinter Taman, I don't know if I can say her name, Kaya. That's, I don't know why, but that's impossible for me, as IOC demands answers. Celebrating the end of women's sport, and it's an opinion clearly, women boycott Dove over virtue signaling, support of trans athlete Laurel Hubbard. And boy, I butchered that entire headline. I have to sit on my tongue, bite my tongue, whatever, sit on my fingers. I'm used to saying sit on my fingers because most of the time I'm communicating, it's typing, text. So I always say sit on my fingers instead of bite my tongue. Yeah, so I will say there's I don't know, I find it a humorous joke going around, but I'll leave it at that. Act of terror, Polish minister condemns arson attack on vaccination site, vows to fight threats against health officials. A head of Belarusian activist group found hanged in Ukrainian park after vanishing while out jogging. Kiev cops open murder probe. Wuhan's 12 million residents to be tested for COVID as Delta variant triggers concern. Days after revealing her roots in Russia, Olympic archery siren confronts haters in second emotional address. I didn't mean to share that. Sorry. I was probably doing headlines. That's not one I would have normally shared. Let's see. RT's Boom Bust looks into U.S. government plan to tax crypto and pay for massive spending program. Iran's new president vows to lift tyrannical U.S. sanctions during inauguration speech. Chinese gaming sectors shares plunge after state media slams industry as spiritual opium. I thought that was an interesting word, an interesting name to call it. You know what? In many cases, I have a hard time arguing that, just to be real honest with you. Pyongyang wants economic sanctions eased as precondition for revived dialogue with the U.S., South Korean lawmakers say. EU accepts San Marino's COVID-19 vaccine certificates. Vast majority of people in tiny European state received Russia's Sputnik 5. Hang on, what was that? Hang on, this is out of my local news here. Let me open it up. Sorry, I'll read you the headline and I probably won't share it. Recent uptick in COVID-19 vaccinations at local pharmacies, but interest not as high as hoped. And this is around St. Louis. So I saw that come in on my watch and I thought, sounds like a headline I may want to include. Okay. EU, and the reason why I'm not worried about sharing it out is because it is a localized thing. EU accepts San Marino's COVID-19 vaccine. Oh, I said that one. Sorry. Focus on Brexit. North Korea blasts London's provocation as UK sends its largest carrier strike group to Asian waters. So that's kind of what I was one of the things I was referring to earlier. South African unrest was dry run for more violence, sought to topple Ramaphosa, veteran politician and Zulu leader, to RT. In a race for radical wokeness, Dove and BBC show how brands will destroy own reputation to support the destruction of women's sport. And, of course, again, I have to say it's opinion because it's not news, and I do share some opinions, not necessarily if I agree with them or not. I'll tell you, I don't have a problem telling you. I'm not a fence setter. Yeah, I agree. I think that these brands are destroying themselves, and I think that what they're pushing is not within the Father's wishes. It is what it is. I can't do nothing about that. All I can do is speak the truth that I know. And I do. I think these businesses, I think they really are, because I think that there's going to be a turning on all this wokeness. I really do. Because there's a lot of people that are involved in it for the attention. All right? And when they start no longer getting that attention or garnering a type of attention that they don't want, a lot of them are going to stop with it, because the whole thing is like, it's almost like a fad thing. This wokeness is like a fad, and at some point it's going to end. I guarantee it. Even if it's because times get really, really hard and people have a lot more important things to worry about, its time is limited. All these organizations, all these businesses, and all of that are really building a foundation in a position on things that the general populace could change their mind on in the drop of a hat. I don't think that's really wise from a business standpoint. So, I'm just saying. IDF accused of covering up 6 Palestinian deaths after army probe says lessons learned in mistaken Gaza shelling, says reports. Shut them down. Snowden responds after French intelligence confirms 3 journalists targeted with Israeli Pegasus spyware. New York becomes first U.S. city to require proof of COVID-19 vaccination for indoor dining, gyms, and performances. Israeli PM warns that state can act alone against Iran following deadly attack on oil tanker. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Pentagon on lockdown over shooting at facility's transit center. Officer reportedly among several injured. That officer, I do know, had succumbed to his injuries from reports. I don't know. I do know that the shooter was, as the article stated, neutralized, but I don't know any details as to any possible motives. I believe other people were injured. I don't know how many in total were injured, and I'm sure that information's out there. I just have not went back and read the updates, so my apologies for that. But yeah, I cringed when that breaking news came out. I don't even want to think what's going to come from that. WAPO and NYT mocked from Chinese officials for putting U.S. at top of Olympics medal table despite China winning more gold. Now, this is the second time I've reported this happening. I remember reporting on it once before. We, in total medals, we're at the top. But as far as, like, position, I don't know where we are now. I don't know where we're at now, but we're not as far as the Olympic points, if you will. We're not top. I don't remember. The last time I reported it, I can tell you we were third, but I don't know where we're at now. Stop framing pushback to misogyny as hate. BBC admonished for anti-hate manifesto that threatens to silence trans critics. You know, these are hard discussions, and that is that's what I was talking about with the group that I had started, because people need to be allowed to have these hard discussions. I've gone on record saying multiple times that I personally think, my opinion, that the uptick in school shootings and stuff like that is because, little boys are not allowed to roll around and black each other's eyes in the dirt. Okay? And I think that's a huge mistake. Now, I'm not saying you should let kids beat the hell out of one another. That's not what I'm saying. But there is never any, and I don't want to use the word closure, resolution, any true resolution to social issues and schools. Because, okay, and I'm sure it's still much the same now, but when I was in school, if you ran to the teacher or the principal to tell on somebody, probably wasn't going to have the best results, okay? And that was what you were supposed to do. But yet we all knew that the best way to stop a bully was to dot his I. Am I right? The best way to stop a bully is to dot his I. And that's a fact. And when those I's are no longer allowed to be dotted, or the person that dots them out of defense for whatever, then that anger builds. And the perpetrator continues, and the victim lets it build until they snap. I honestly, personally think that that's a large part of the psychological factor of what happens in these school shootings. I'm wrong, but I think I hit that nail on the head. Activist prosecuted for legal free speech fined $2,500 for flag saying F Biden. Where? Oh yeah, United States. Yeah, Florida. Republican senator claims FBI knew more about Capitol riot than they admitted as 2 more officers die by suicide. And I still have lots of questions. American heroes, Biden hails latest officers to die by suicide following January 6 Capitol riot. You know, one thing that upsets me about this? January 6th is being played off as one of this country's darkest moments. And I don't get it. To me, when I read things about how traumatized these officers were, what I see in my head is the brave men and women that go to God knows where to do their best for this nation. I certainly think about the combat that they are engaged in. I think about their friends that they have to send home. I think about the 22 or more veterans that commit suicide every day. And it bothers me deeply that we're calling the events of January 6th traumatic and equating it to one of the darkest times of this nation's history. I mean, bombing black populations isn't a dark time in this country's history? Who was responsible for that? How about spraying radioactive materials off of the rooftops over the poor neighborhoods of St. Louis? Who was responsible for that? I could go on and on. It's getting old. Real quick. Debate rages as Labor MP David Lammy questions why black English is not a census option. As Russia recovers from economic effects of COVID-19, countries' richest have seen $40 billion growth in fortunes in 2021, says reports. Well, obviously, we have a lot of the same stuff here. Cultural preferences for boys and prenatal sex selection could lead to the loss of 22 million girls by 2100, researchers warn. Explosions shake Kabul as Afghanistan defense minister's residence comes under attack. Airline investigating after footage shows flight attendant duct taping passenger to seat after he groped and punched the staff. Iran blasts suspicious reporting as UK Navy agency warns of potential ship hijacking off UAE. And that's what I was referring to earlier, and I hadn't read the article or anything like that, so I have no idea for sure how many ships or anything. I know Southern Prepper 1 made a video earlier, and he had said 4, so that's where I said my 4 from, and that's where I got that number. Other than that, I can confirm it's being reported that something happened, but I don't know the details. I'm sorry that I over-clarify myself with this stuff, but I'm very careful. I really don't want to put out misinformation. I'm real careful. Netanyahu accuses new government of making Israel a U.S. protectorate and says no surprises, policy could help Biden stop attack on Iran. Let's see. I cannot risk it. Second female athletic star vows not to return to Belarus because she fears losing freedom and her life. Now, this is one of those, articles that it's Olympics, it's sports, but I see news in this, and I'm actually concerned. Whichever way this is, whether this is a real concern that this lady is having, or whether she's on an agenda to try to garner support to oust the current president, Lukashenko. Because, as you know, they the West pulls out all the stops to try to oust him. So, is this part of an agenda? I don't know. Is this an actual fear? I have no idea. But I think that it needs looked into. So, anyway. Defiant Cuomo shares montage of himself kissing people as explosive report says he sexually harassed 11 women. He should resign. Biden leads Democrats sprint away from Cuomo after sexual harassment probe returns guilt. Voter ID is racist, but this isn't. Fury over New York City vaccine pass that actually discriminates against black Americans. CDC issues new moratorium on U.S. evictions to get around Supreme Court ban on previous one. Festus chimps seized with U.S. Marshal oversight. I'm sorry, not overnight. I shared this. This is local to the St. Louis area, but this concerned me. These folks had these chimps. I believe there were 6 of them, and they had them for my understanding like over 30 years or something like that. The neighbors, if you might think that might have been an issue, absolutely not. The news station interviewed several of the neighbors. The neighbors liked them. They thought it was great. They thought it was kind of cool to have in the neighborhood. PETA is the one that threw the fit, and thanks to PETA, God only knows the fate of these incredible animals. I love chimps. I love them. I've never actually been face to face with one. Oh, how I wish. I mean, I've been to the zoo, but I mean, as in, I wanna be face to face. I want to touch one. I want to hold its hand. That's me. I would be in heaven. So this bothers me. Apparently they were well taken care of, contrary to PETA's BS, and again, that the neighbors liked them. They if there wasn't an issue, they weren't getting out and causing a problem or anything like that. There was no problems other than PETA. Imagine that. Let's see. Turkish mayor issues desperate plea for help as raging wildfires close in on power plant. Federal judge sides with Biden administration, blocks Texas measure to stop transportation of illegal immigrants. And I got a number 1 up here. I saw that actually come out with the local earlier. Missouri, I figured it would come out on RT, so I just waited. A Missouri governor pardons St. Louis couple who brandished guns at BLM protesters. I typically know pretty quick if I see a headline from another source, whether it be a local one or like AP or any number of sources. I typically know whether or not it's going to be one shared by RT, and if I think it might not be, then I go ahead and share it from that source. Otherwise, I'll just wait for RT. It makes it nice, and I get that some people's hung up on it because it's Russia Today, but I'll tell you, it's the most accurate that I can find. It's the by far most accurate one single news source that I can find. Sputnik isn't too bad either. Another Russian. So it is what it is. I'm sorry. I mean, if you've got 2 cars sitting in front of me and you're giving me a choice, right? If you've got a Ford Escort or a Lincoln, I'm gonna choose the Lincoln. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. That pretty much wraps up what I've got. I hope everybody has a good night. Try to work on building community. And we'll talk to you tomorrow, God willing. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom. Have a great night.